Oh wait, I almost forgot. How can you do a review on this car and not put the top down? Much better. So ever since its debut in 2018, the Lexus LC500 has piqued my interest due to not only its stunning design, but also its specs on paper. And this week I was lucky enough to receive the car from Lexus to actually experience this vehicle for myself and see what the LC500 has to offer. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at everything I like and dislike about the LC500 convertible, and hint, there's actually a lot to like. So my first like about the LC500 is the overall exterior design. Now, over my last few days with this vehicle, I haven't really met one person that absolutely dislikes the design of this vehicle. Now, sure, there are a few people out there that like it a little bit more than others, myself included, but overall, I think this is a beautiful, gorgeous design, and overall, I think it is one of the best looking luxury two-door coupes or convertibles on the market, because this does come in either. And I think the convertible as seen here is even more gorgeous than that of the standard coupe, but really you can't go wrong with either one. And if you remember the LFA from just a few years back, this car carries on just a hint of its design, which gives it a distinct look that is instantly recognizable from a distance. From the long nose to the flowing lines and the sloping roofline, to the way the LEDs are integrated into the headlight assembly, everything about this car just comes together to create a beautiful piece of machinery. Now, my next like has to do with what's found underneath the hood, standard in every convertible, optional in the coupes, and that is the 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine. Now, from the appearance and overall styling, this is not what one would expect underneath the hood of this vehicle, at least not if you're unfamiliar with this vehicle, but the 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 putting out 471 horsepower, 398 pound-feet of torque through the rear wheels is plenty enough to put a smile on your face, both by the power output as well as the sound it produces. Now, the LC has special tuning for the engine noise inside of the cabin as well as an active exhaust on the outside, and this V8 allows the LC500 to do 0 to 60 in the mid 4-second range, which given its size and weight isn't slow by any means, and it's also paired to a 10-speed torque converted automatic transmission. It allows for effortless cruising at just about any speed. So next up are the LED tail lamps. Now, this is actually one of the design elements I vividly remember seeing in 2018, 2019 at an auto show when this car first launched to dealerships out on the market. I was remembering these 3-dimensional tail lamps, which certainly give it a very unique presence out on the road and are one of the exterior design elements I really think set it apart from some of the other luxury vehicles out there that do have similar LED lighting. Now, what's unique about these tail lights is it gives it a 3-dimensional look given the mirror type of finish and the overall construction of the tail lamp that makes it look like it is much deeper than the tail lamp housing really is. So basically, you can look in the exterior straight into the tail lamp and it looks like, or appears like, that it actually goes on forever. So this is just one of those cool design elements I remember back in 2018 when this car first launched, and it really makes the LC500 very distinguishable from the back end. Now next, moving on to the interior, my next like is the overall build quality, the usage of materials, as well as the seat comfort. Now here on the inside of the LC500, you'll find a vast amount of high quality leathers, metal finishes on surfaces that look like they're made out of metal, and the seats themselves are, even though a little bit on the tight side, are extremely comfortable for just about every body type out there. And even if that is enough, the backs of the headrests are embossed with a Lexus logo, just so you know that people behind you know that this vehicle is indeed a Lexus. And no, I'm not talking about the rear seat occupants, because we both know nobody's going to be sitting back there given the space constraints of this vehicle. And along with this is the overall seat comfort. Now, my first impressions upon sitting inside this vehicle was that the seats were going to be a little bit on the tighter side for larger individuals out there. And I have to say, they still might be, but everybody who got in this vehicle was extremely happy. They thought the seats themselves were very nice. They were, again, a little bit on the tighter side. You can certainly feel the bolsters, but they were not uncomfortable by any means. And this likely has to do with the leather material as well as the foam inserts for the bolsters and the seat cushions themselves. So very nice positive aspect. The driver's side does have 3-person memory seat. Both of them are going to be power adjustable, heated, ventilated, and they do have heated headrests as well, which I actually was able to test out on a couple chilly early mornings that we had, just over 50 degrees. So overall, everything about the seats and the comfort is top notch, and I would highly recommend. So hopefully you guys are still with me on this long list of likes. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is a lot to like about the LC500, and my next like has to do with the overall ride quality and suspension setup. Now the LC500 has the adaptive variable suspension, which does change with the drive modes as well as automatically adjusts itself depending on the road conditions, the steering wheel input, and a bunch of other parameters set up by Lexus. But the LC500 excels in its ride quality because it goes from extremely comfortable, extremely plush, to that of being fairly sporty once you put it in Sport or Sport Plus mode. But that was one of the aspects I really enjoyed with this vehicle, was the overall range of suspension tuning. Extremely plush, like overly plush if you put it in comfort mode, to that of being reasonably stiff in Sport and Sport Plus, to the point where yes, it's still going to be comfortable out on the roadway, but you can start to take corners a little bit more aggressively. There's going to be less body lean, and like I said, the computer does monitor this and adjust it accordingly depending on your drive mode and a few other parameters as well. So if you want a very plush Grand Tourer car, this is definitely going to excel at that. If you want a little bit more of a sporty Grand Tourer car, this is going to accomplish that task as well. Now, despite how many things there are to absolutely love about the LC500, there were a few aspects that frustrated me beyond belief on a day-to-day basis, but luckily Lexus seems to have realized these things and updated many of them for the 2024 model year. So these things pertain to the 2023 and older, while the 2024 and newer do receive these updates. Now, the first thing I dislike is the infotainment system and the controller here in the center console. Now, this is the older Lexus UI or infotainment system with the touchpad integration to control the infotainment itself. And even though the screen is implemented into the dashboard extremely well into the LC500, this is probably one of the things that the interior designers really incorporated very well on the inside. It's just terrible to use on a day-to-day basis. Now, the problem I have with the infotainment in its current iteration or this 2023 model is the touchpad design, and everything is controlled through the screen itself. So you want to turn on your heated headrests, your ventilated seats, well, that's all done through the touchpad and the controller itself. There's no physical buttons to control the climate outside of the AC system here, with just a few integrated hard touch buttons. So everything else, including the radio, wired Android Auto, wired Apple CarPlay, controlled through the touchscreen, and it is just horrendous to use, especially when you're moving out on the roadway. So I'm glad that they did update this for 2024, and luckily my local Lexus dealership did actually have a 2024 Lexus LC in the showroom that I was able to get hands-on time with and actually experience the updated infotainment itself. Now, as far as this updated infotainment system, this is very similar to the one that was found in the 2023 NX that I reviewed a few weeks ago here on the channel, and is also being implemented into many new Toyotas and other Lexus models as they get updated and refreshed. This is a touchscreen display, so you can use the actual touchscreen to control it. There's no more controller in the center console, but they did add a few shortcut buttons for the heated ventilated seats to bring up that main menu on the screen itself, as well as a 360 camera system, which is also on my dislikes list, which we'll mention here in a second, that pulls up that screen on the infotainment. And of course, you can use the touchscreen aspect to go to the navigation, a bunch of other functions as well. So as a whole, on a day-to-day basis, a touchscreen infotainment with those shortcut buttons in the center console makes this experience 100 times better to use, and the addition of wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay makes it even better as well. And another small thing to note that they did update is they added a USB-C port in the center console armrest in addition to one USB-A. This 2023, being an older, has two USB-A ports, so glad they changed that out, as well as USB-C is becoming the new standard. So as a whole, the new technology really made it much better, but here in the 2023 and olders, it is something that frustrates me every single time I use it. Now, my next dislike, which like I said they did resolve for 2024, is the fact that this particular vehicle does not have a front camera. Now, a front camera would help tremendously in this vehicle, in addition to the front and rear parking sensors, as then you can better understand where the nose of the vehicle is, especially for those pesky parking curbs. Now, for 2024, you'll find the shortcut button to the camera system in the center console to easily pull it up on the larger touchscreen display. But as far as these older LCs, it only has a backup camera in addition to those front and rear parking sensors, and I have to say the backup camera itself is not good resolution, especially in low light situations. So I would say overall, the backup camera not up to the greatest quality, and the fact that there's only front and rear parking sensors to kind of guide you in your parking situations is not ideal for a vehicle of this price point and of this premium nature. Now, next up, moving on, my next dislike has to do with the trunk. Now, I have to say a positive aspect is the implementation of the trunk release button into the passenger side tail lamp assembly. So unless you're familiar with this vehicle, have seen other reviews that have mentioned this, you may be a little bit hard pressed to find this button because it's so well hidden. But anyways, the thing I dislike is the overall available space. Now, sure, this is a luxury two-door coupe, so I'm not expecting it to have a massive trunk, but I would say this is a little bit on the smaller side given the overall footprint of and size of the vehicle. Now, one good aspect is the fact that the trunk space is constant no matter whether the top is up or down. So there's no pesky divider to put down to gain access to more trunk space when the top is up, and then you have to get out, put the divider down and stuff like that. Now, I will say one of the cool aspects is you can easily access the 12-volt battery from one of these storage panels underneath. I'm sure this helps for weight distribution and overall performance and handling, but that is found here in the trunk space, so that's easy to access. You do have a few additional tie-down points for cargo nets, and there is a child safety release back here as well. Not that a child will fit back here, but it is possible, I guess, if they're small enough. But overall, I would say you'll struggle to fit any golf clubs, a golf bag in here, and you really aren't going to be doing grocery shopping for much more than 1 or 2 people, certainly not 4, unless you plan on using those back seats, which is pretty much all they're good for anyway. Now, speaking of those back seats, well, we both know people aren't going to be sitting back here. The available space with the back seats of the LC500 is just kind of laughable, to say the least. That passenger seat, where most of the people or passengers found comfortable, is literally about half an inch from touching the seat cushion bottom on that side. And behind my rough driving position, I would say there is enough for about an inch, inch and a half of legroom. So unless your legs are either non-existent or are extremely thin, you are not going to be sitting comfortably in the backseat of the LC500. Now, my number 5 dislike has to do with the drive mode button location. Now, believe it or not, I don't actually hate the overall design or the aesthetics, although it is a little bit odd, but I do hate just how far away it is from the driver's seat. Now, the reason I don't like it is because I have to lean just far enough forward where my back comes off the seat itself, so this is just annoying, but also a little bit uncomfortable depending on how often you are changing the drive modes. And also another reason is because if you want to throw the car in Sport Plus mode at that stoplight, you are giving away the fact that you're doing something to your car, and not being able to be discreet about it may give your opponent an advantage. So keep that in mind, is that unless you got really long arms, and even if you do, they may see you adjusting that and being like, oh, it's on. Now, this next one may come as a surprise to some of you guys out there, and it originally wasn't on my list of dislikes, but I decided to add it because there have been a few instances where I have been a little bit unhappy with its performance, and that is the transmission itself. So I do want to preface this by saying that it might be an issue or an occurrence with this exact vehicle, given this has been a press vehicle, so I'm sure it's not been driven the most gently out there, but it has been driven in a spirited manner over its lifetime in about 6,200 miles. So I did want to include it on this list just because I've noticed it here and there. Now, the main reason I do want to include it on this list is the fact that in comfort or normal modes in specific, some of the shifts can be a little bit sloppy. There can be a little bit of lurching at lower speeds in the 2-to-1 downshift. Say you're rolling up to a stoplight or a stop sign, you can feel the transmission shift. And overall, it's just not as refined and crisp as I would like it, especially in normal drive modes. Now, this might have something to do with the fact that they're tuning it to be a little bit more comfortable, or trying to make it a little bit more comfortable in those drive modes, and rightfully so. I would expect a vehicle in a comfort or normal mode like this to be extremely comfortable, and the overall shifts to be smooth like that. But instantly, once you throw it in sport, and especially Sport Plus mode, the transmission becomes extremely responsive. The paddle shifters and the downshifts are extremely quick, and really there's nothing to complain about, especially in those 2 drive modes. So overall, it's kind of been a mixed bag, and I was a little bit hesitant to include it on this list. It's not a deal breaker whatsoever, and again, it might be an issue specific to this exact vehicle, but overall, the transmission performance can be a little bit of a mixed bag depending on the drive mode, but if you're planning on driving it in Sport or Sport Plus, I really never experienced an issue there. So that's pretty much going to do it for my list of likes and dislikes with the 2023 Lexus LC500 Convertible. Now, I want to give a huge thanks to Lexus and Jennifer over there for sending out this vehicle for me to review for you guys. It was absolutely a blast of an experience, and I have to say Lexus nailed the overall vehicle, and I totally understand why this vehicle is so appealing in the luxury 2-door coupe or convertible segment of vehicle. It's powerful, it's refined, it's got a quiet interior with the top up, it's got a quiet interior with the top down. The overall cabin, design and everything like that creates for a very quiet environment if you have the top down, say at even 70, 75 miles an hour. So as a whole, there's really not a lot to dislike about this vehicle. And overall, it was absolutely the best week weather-wise to test out a convertible here in the Midwest especially. So overall, I had a blast. I totally understand why people like this vehicle and why people are attracted to it in terms of the overall power, refinement, the quietness on the inside, the overall feel and fit and finish of the cabin. It's just a fantastic fantastic vehicle, and overall it is a little bit on the pricey side at $113,000 as tested, but if you're looking for a premium experience, especially one that you don't see out on the roadway, about everybody I asked had never seen one of these or had been years since they saw the last one, then this is definitely the way to go for a vehicle of this stature. So once again, I appreciate the support here on the channel. Hopefully you guys will check out the other video I do have coming with my full driving impressions of this vehicle and the overall first person experience, because that is definitely going to be a good one to watch. But overall, once again, I appreciate the support here on the channel. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And as always, hope to see you guys in the next one.